And it says we are live, so that means we are into our 22nd lead in for the Car Guy and Six Fan Show. So for those of you who are here and can see us, you know this is par for the course for every week when we do this. We got to wait for the ads to play, and we got to wait for everything to catch up on the other end. So having said that, welcome to the Car Guy and Six Fan Show. My name is Jason. I am the car guy of the Car Guy and Six Fan Show, and this is a collaborative effort with my friend over here.
That makes me straight Six Fan here on YouTube, or Six Fan in this operation. I'm Grant Tommy, and we're excited to have our guest, and we'll let him do the introduction of himself. So I'm going to sit it down below me and let Scott introduce himself.
Hi, I'm Scott from the channel VEHCOR, and I rebuild boring cars that everybody can drive. You know, you see them on the road every day, but I try to fix wrecks up and make them as good or better than they were from the factory.
And so Scott's channel is the channel name is VEHCOR, but we are all familiar with the also known as Scott's GMC Emporium or Scott's Chevrolet Emporium or Scott's Pontiac Emporium, whatever you want to call it. We know that he's got a whole emporium of used parts to build these cars. Before we get into the hard questions here, we want to throw it over to Grant into the chat and see who has joined us this evening.
Yeah, extra hard, by the way. Like, they're going to be real tough ones, Scott. Well, Everything Broken Garage kicked us off and was first in the chat. Uncle Squirrel joining us as well. Will's Wheels, Big Al, and Kyle Bennett right now. So waiting for a few more people to trickle in. Oh, Get Out and Drive has made their appearance. I'm sure King Eric, the greatest of all, is only a few minutes away. So with that, I guess we'll just get started with our line of questioning. So Jason, why don't you kick us off?
Yeah, so the first question that I wanted to ask is, we always talk about the history of people and why they do what they do. So obviously you're in the collision business, Scott. So tell us, what led you to the collision business and how long have you been doing it?
Well, I grew up in a shop literally since I was 3 years old. My family has been rebuilding totaled cars since the 1940s. So kind of had to fall into that. I'm actually a mechanic by day, and rebuilding cars is just what I do on the side. I used to work in a shop, and I was the mechanic, and it was also a body shop. So I did mechanical work on whatever, if they needed suspension changed or, whatever came in the door. And then I would do body work when I didn't have any mechanical work to do. So I went to school to be trained for it. So, I kind of picked it up, and it's kind of a nice break from doing mechanical work all the time.
Well, Scott, self-admittedly, as we talked backstage, I'm fairly new to your channel. I haven't watched very much of your content, but at kind of first blush, I see it and I'm like, oh, this is very similar to like B is for build. I guess if your channel was probably more like B is for boring, and that seems to be kind of like a tagline you love to use and over and over. And so tell us about why the boring build, hashtag boring build, is kind of a thing that you like to run with, and what that really means for you.
Well, that was all the comments, the YouTube comments, the experts that told me that why don't I build something cool? Why are you building Grand Ams and Terrains and Chevy trucks and Escapes and whatever I'm building? And they just said, these cars are boring. Well, that's what I do. I build boring things. I'm a boring guy. I'm just your average guy. I'm nobody special. So, I'm just out here building stuff I can sell. If I build a Lamborghini, my market's kind of, small. If I build a Ford Escape, I got a lot of people I can sell it to. So that's where the boring builds came from. And hey, they want to call them boring, I'll own the title. Doesn't bother me.
And that's one of the things that keeps me coming back to your channel, Scott, is your 100% honesty, sincerity, sarcasm to those who make those comments down on your videos. I think by the sounds of things, you pay fairly close attention to what people are saying, and to some degree mock what they're saying. Is that who Scott is? Is Scott a sarcastic guy? Is he kind of a tomfoolery? What kind of guy is Scott when he's not on camera?
I rarely take anything seriously. Like, I'm always joking about everything. I'm very sarcastic. I do take my work seriously. I want to do a good job, but you know, the end result is a good product, but how we get there, and we're going to have fun. And the guys that work with me, I mess with them, they mess with me. We have a good time at work, you know, like that's who I am, you know, and I really don't take a lot of BS from people. And now that we have the internet, you kind of get a lot of BS from people that wouldn't normally say it to your face. It doesn't bother me. I mean, come on, you're typing, you're a keyboard warrior. I'm not really, you're not doing anything to me, you know, but so I just mock their little feeling of power that they have. So,
well, and part of what we like to do here in the Car Guy and Six Fan Show is help, you know, pick other creators' minds and figure out like what's worked for them, how to help, you know, each of the channels in the chat, like how to grow and things like that. And when you talk in one of those things, one of those marquee things about building a YouTube channel is having just the thing you can latch on to your kind of like your speak, your words. So I love the boring builds thing a lot. And I guess, you know, when you're looking at things like you're rebuilding a Buick LeSabre, let's say with 125,000 miles. Honestly though, like it's very similar to, we had a guest a couple weeks ago who they latched onto someone else's comments too, which was they're like, this is trash content. So they just like, hey, well, there's a group of us. We're the trash content crew. So I guess what I'm getting at is, so you latched onto the boring build thing. Obviously people keep coming back. So talk about like what it's meant to you to actually have like this tagline, have this thing that you're known for, and how you use that to leverage basically your growth.
Well, I don't really know that I don't follow the stereotype of how you're supposed to build a YouTube channel. I just kind of put out my content and it's take it or leave it. And whatever my channel does, it does. I used to respond to every single comment. Every comment I gave a response to, and that stopped somewhere around the Mustang. Yeah, the Mustang. When the comments just started getting so ridiculous that I'm just like, okay, I've had enough. So usually what I try to do is when I put out a video, I'll respond to the comments for the first couple hours or whatever. You know, I put them out on Friday. And so if you're early, you usually get a response from me. And then if I'm bored, you know, I'll check in. And then sometimes when I'm sitting around at inspections or something, I'll respond to comments. And that's kind of grown my channel a little bit. Just people telling other people, you know, that I respond to them and that I'm not just one of those YouTubers that ignores everybody. And I probably still read close to 90% of the comments, but it's very easy to read them. It's hard to respond to all of them because even simple responses take a few seconds. And when you've got, you know, hundreds of comments, that adds up. So, and then, you know, I don't do anything for content. Like, I really don't. Like, you're seeing what I'm building. So if it's the same car over and over again, it's usually because Scott's Emporium has that car in stock. So it makes financial sense for me to keep building that type of car. I think most of my success was probably on accident. The mistake truck was a huge springboard for my channel. And that was when I just got my camera, and, you know, I made the first like real video where it was, you know, me talking to the camera, and it was, hey, I messed up. You know, I've been doing this for 25 years and I did not see this one coming. And I got a lot of people that followed me and they thought it was never going to be done. And it was, you know, it's not like that other car that probably will never be done, but the mistake truck, it got done and it was profitable. And without even trying, I sold it, you know, and moved right into the white Denali, the Sierra Denali. And that one was actually, I was the first one to build the Sierra Denali on YouTube that I'm aware of. So yeah, I was somewhere ahead of the channel or ahead of the times then. But I still think that's just a regular old truck, you know, even though it costs as much as, you know, houses used to. It wasn't anything special. It's not a Lamborghini or a Ferrari or anything like that, you know. But yeah, I don't really subscribe to the whole, you know, following YouTube and trying to build a channel. If it happens, it happens. That's great. If it doesn't, it doesn't. You know.
So your YouTube channel, I mean, just looking at this screen that we've got shared up here right now, you've got 3 GM products of different generations. Obviously, a majority of your product that you do rebuild is GM, but you're not exclusive to that. You do work on a few other things. I've seen some Escapes, not Escape, Explorers on there.
There's Explorers, there's Escapes.
Yeah. So there seems to be, like, I sell used cars for my day job, and a lot of people say, well, how come you don't get this in, or how come you don't get that in? I'm like, well, it's pretty strategic to say, well, I buy what will sell. And, you know, a lot of people don't like a Chevy Cruze as a used car, but you know what? It's our bread and butter. We sell a pile of those things. We know what the problems are when we buy them, so we fix them before we sell them. And it's finding that niche. Obviously, you found your niche with these GM products that you're doing. And when you do have an emporium kind of in your backyard of spare parts of things that you do frequently, it certainly cuts the cost down on the rebuild of the project you're doing today. So did you learn that at some point, if I have spare parts, or that it's going to save me money? Or did you say, you know, I've got to have a small junkyard full of things to help keep me going?
I learned it by accident. I used to just buy builds, and then I'd buy the parts, and well, here we go with Grand Ams. I wanted to buy my first house, so I needed to come up with a down payment. So I bought 6 Grand Ams. 4 of them I fixed, 2 of them I parted out. And what I realized was that when you're doing a build and you need a $15 part, it was nothing. You just buy it. But when you start using those $15 parts off your parts car, that adds up quick, you know. And Grand Ams are very special because they didn't have a lot of options. I did all GTs. They only came in a few colors. They only had 2 interior colors. Parts were, you know, easily interchangeable. And that's when I learned that having parts cars is beneficial. And how I do it is I price out the parts I need. And if I can buy a whole car for what those parts are going to cost me, no brainer, buy the car.
Absolutely.
So that's where the emporiums came from. Those are all cars that I needed parts for, and it was cheaper for me to buy a whole car than it was for me to go out and get whatever, a front end assembly or 2 doors or whatever. So,
well, I guess to piggyback on that a little bit, if we're using the screen in front of us as the barometer, I mean this next question probably 51% tongue in cheek and maybe 49% serious, but did you learn that cars painted white are the cheapest to repaint, or what?
No, I just like white cars. That's all it is. They're easy to keep clean. And well, if you've watched my channel, you know how much I don't like to clean things. So
when you're looking at the next candidate, is that kind of a thing that is that one of the criteria or on the checklist? You know, is it a white car or
No, I rebuild any color car. You know, it doesn't matter to me. Honestly, my favorite of all my trucks that I've done was that black Sierra Denali. Horrible to keep clean. The detailing gnome had to wash it every week. He's really tired of that truck. But yeah, it was great. You know, I really liked it. It was a good looking truck. I think it looks better than my white one, but well, my white one's easier to keep clean. So that's what we're going to stay with.
So you mentioned it, and I wanted to make sure I brought this up at some point, but you mentioned the gnomes. So I know that once in a while in your videos, you do have another fellow that is kind of wandering around in the background.
He's the roaming gnome.
He's the roaming gnome, but you've also got the cleaning gnomes.
Yeah, he's also the cleaning gnome. He's got many different titles.
You've got the paint gnomes, right?
Yeah, painting gnomes. He's that too sometimes.
Yeah, so I gathered from watching you all these years that, you know, even though you say the gnome, it's probably you that's doing it, or somebody else that's doing it with you. But it's not like you have 10 different gnomes for 10 different jobs, right? Like you're talking about 1 or 2 guys that are doing everything.
Yeah, if you add it all up, I got 4 gnomes.
Yeah.
So but only then the reason they're gnomes is because you never used to see them. I used to film everything on hours when they weren't there, so it would be a joke because somebody came in and did this and it wasn't me. You know, I'd finish my job, I'd give it to them, I'd go home, and then we come back the next time and whatever was done, I'm like, well, the gnomes did it, you know. And then all of a sudden the gnomes started appearing on the channel, and it's hilarious. In the comments, they're just like, I can't believe you disrespect people like that. If you only knew what they called me.
Yeah, right. And on top of the gnomes, we can't. I would be remiss if I didn't mention the pizza delivery girl.
Yes, that's my girlfriend.
Yeah, so you've got some extra help that pops in there once in a while, and I think it's great that you as seemingly dry as it can be to watch for some people. Again, if you pick up on the sarcasm, you pick up on the the passive aggressiveness, and you pick up on the jokes about the universal tools for whatever. It can be funny to sit there and watch. And once in a while, I'll be watching it on a Friday evening, and I'll start chuckling, and my wife will get mad because she's sitting beside me, wondering, what are you laughing at? I'm like, well, you wouldn't get it, but it's fun to sit there and watch somebody of like mind with the sense of humor and the dry commentary which comes along with it, because a lot of your work that you do is voiceover.
Yeah, well, that actually started because if you go really far back in my channel, it used to be just it was just a time lapse, and then I would put whatever music YouTube had and overlay it and send it out the door. Like it really took me 30 minutes to make those videos. And then when I got somebody asked, well, could you explain what you're doing? Because they could clearly tell I kind of knew what I was doing. So that came from a recommendation from the comments, and I do read them, and there are people here that are actually there to help you instead of, just be experts. And so I said, okay, I could do a voiceover, and I can't really do it. The shop is so loud. I can't really talk while I'm there. So it's easier just to record everything and then do the voiceover afterwards. And, hopefully I can remember what I was doing. So,
well, that's kind of where I was trying to go earlier with the boring build thing, like having your own, it's like sacred words or signature, like everybody comes to know you for the gnomes, as Jason was pointing out. And so I think that's kind of what I was getting at, is like, it's almost like every channel, you don't force it, right? You don't just like, oh, I really need this, and try to figure out what that is, just when it comes naturally like that. So I really love that you've got these things that people know you for. And then it also sounds like you just mentioned, you've built this channel on the backbone of paying attention to the comments to some degree or another. So what are maybe some other, I'll call them like markers along the way of times where it's like, hey, something from the comments really sent you in a certain direction with the channel?
That was the biggest one. I don't know. I mean, I don't really seek approval, but it is nice that, there's a lot of people out there, and it's like, I don't feel like uploading this week, but then it's like, oh, we missed you last week. It's like, oh man, somebody was counting on me to entertain them or put them to sleep or whatever I do. Like, so it's like, all right. So it gave me made me show up, kind of, gave me a reason to make a video, even if I didn't feel like doing it. Cause it gets hard sometimes, I got so much other stuff going on, and these videos take longer than the actual work does most of the time. So, and you don't always want to do it. And there are certain videos that I do want to do. One of them, and maybe that's why it was one of my best videos, was that Camaro video. It was just a fun video to make. Like, I wasn't rebuilding anything. I was just out goofing off, and I'd love to do more of those, but it doesn't necessarily pay the bills, so I can't goof off with everything.
Well, and there is some part of fulfilling the YouTube what people are asking for, I guess, because you've come accustomed to doing the rebuilds, and people are used to seeing and expecting what they see as good quality work, that you do explain what you're doing. And basically there's no shortcuts given, and in between it's entertaining because you do share a little bit of humor and stuff like that. But like you said, we've always asked questions of bigger YouTube channels. What are some of the things, or what's the thing that keeps you successful? A lot of guys say, well, consistency and stuff like that. You're pushing 180,000 subscribers here pretty quick, and you didn't get there just because you threw a video up once a month or once every other week, or scatterbrained it. You seem to pick a day. People expect that day, just like a regular TV show, like we did back in the 80s. You could only watch it because you didn't have Netflix, or you didn't have the ability to record it. Like, there is a certain amount of expectation as a YouTube creator that people will wonder where you went if you take a day off. If you've not done something that follows suit or follows within the norm. Do you find that no matter, as your channel grows, do you find that the need or the necessity to post consistently is what keeps you doing it, or are you still having fun and you just enjoy it as a rule?
So when I started, it was right after the mistake truck was finished. I set a goal, and I said, I'm going to upload every week for a year. So I will have a video every week, whatever it is, I will have a video. And I did that I did not miss a Friday for 18 months. And then there was just something going on, and, I got tied up, and then I missed one. And then, it was once you miss one, it's easier to start missing more. And I wanted to see, how it would grow as a channel, and if YouTube was a way for me to make money, or if it was taking away from my rebuilds. And it was kind of a business decision that, like, my rebuilds make me more money than YouTube does. So I need to focus on that. But at the same time, like, any car that you see on my channel, unless I say it's mine or I say it's already sold, is basically I'm building it. And the reason I'm making the videos is to show the prospective buyer exactly what was done to their car. So my videos are technically only made for one person, and that's the person buying my car. And then anybody else along the way that can learn something from it, or my head is full of all kinds of problem solving things that I've learned over 30 years of doing body work and mechanical work. So if somebody can learn something, and, so much of it I don't even think about, like, it's just kind of second nature to me. If I can remember, hey, I struggled with this one time, and I try to point it out on the channel, to maybe help somebody else. So if somebody can get that out of there while I'm making this video to sell the car, that's great. But my ultimate goal is just to, make a video to show people what I did. And if my channel had gotten bigger, or I had made more money, or if I spent less time making the videos. The problem is I have so much time invested in making every video. And people don't realize it. Like, if you look at a lot of the other rebuilding channels, we just talk to the camera for a while, we time lapse it, play some music, and then poof, it's done. And the reason for that is it's so easy to edit. That takes you an hour to put together. Mine take 10 hours. If I work on a car for 10 hours, I will edit that video for at least 10 hours. That's 10 hours I'm not working on another car. So I do still like making videos sometimes. There's certain ones I get excited for. And there's certain ones that, like, I'm doing a car, like that old Buick LeSabre, and it was just like, it was an easy job, but maybe somebody could learn that, hey, this boring old grandma car made me some money, and people would think, send that thing to the junkyard. Why? I mean, money's money, even that old black Grand Am I just did, I got the car for free. Couldn't go wrong, like, I'll never turn down a free car. So, and it turned out to be a decent car. I had nothing to lose on it, and I drove that thing all winter long. That was my winter beater to keep all my good cars out of the salt. So, yeah, I don't know where I was going with this.
Well, no, I mean, I think there's a lot of things to unwrap there, but
Well, go
but
ahead, ask away.
well, like one of the things you mentioned, and it doesn't matter how big or small you are as a YouTube creator, like just that burnout factor that you mentioned. I mean, it's very real, and there's some other things, but I think before we get into our next question, just wanted to. We're kind of approaching that halfway point of our show, and so wanted to remind everybody the new partnership here in season 7 with the Get Out and Drive podcast. This show, the Car Guy and Six Fan Show, is driven by the Get Out and Drive podcast. So we always invite everybody to head over there after this. If you like this content, you'll most likely like Get Out and Drive podcast. So go check them out. But Scott, you had mentioned that ability to have like the inventory, or the inventory is the wrong word, but like the backstory, all of the behind the scenes footage for the prospective buyer. I've only done one project car on my channel, but I found it very helpful. I had nothing to hide. I'm like, there's like 50 videos of this Fairmont, so anything you ever possibly want to know about the car, I just send them a link to my YouTube channel, and it's a very transparent way of doing business. And at that point, for me anyway, it was like paralysis by analysis. Like, I doubt any prospective buyer was going to go through 50 videos, to really figure out, is this the right $5,500 investment for me, but so when you are taking 10 hours away from rebuilds, but that 10 hours you're sort of marketing yourself. Do you find that it's easier to sell the rebuild cars that did make an appearance on your channel versus ones that didn't, or is it kind of just, people find you other ways?
I do no marketing whatsoever. And most of the cars on my YouTube channel if there's a video, it's for sale at the start of the video. It's usually not for sale by the end of the video. Like, I've been doing this for 30 years and I do a fairly good job. I get a lot of recommendations, a lot of repeat customers. So people call me up all the time. And then there's a double-edged sword to having a slightly larger YouTube channel where you're a celebrity, I guess. I don't tell anybody. So like the black Sierra Denali that I just sold, even though the experts told me I never would because I was asking way too much money, but I guess they were wrong.
There it is. There it is.
I got all done with it, and he looked at it. He drove it. He knew it had a rebuilt title. I had pictures of it before, and I said a video was available. I didn't tell him who I was or anything like that. And he'd already had a deposit on it. He said, "Oh, could you send me some of those videos?" I just sent him a link to my YouTube channel. And he watched him and he's just like, it was everything you said it was, and now I literally see it, and, he owns a shop. So he was looking at another car or another truck with a rebuilt title that had a gas engine, older, and a Chevy with more miles for the same money. It was kind of a no-brainer which truck he was going to buy, So, but yeah, it does make it easier to sell, and it gives people a peace of mind that I'm not hiding anything. And it's basically just my credibility. It's like, here's proof of what I said was true, and it eases people's minds, and I just want people to be comfortable with their purchase, so makes me feel better too.
Well, and speaking of feeling better, like, I don't know why, but I've been in the used car business on my own now for 12 years. And just now having this conversation with you about, using the rebuild videos as a tool to market the vehicle, essentially, you got nothing to hide. You're doing everything right. You're doing a good job. You're covering all the bases. As a used car salesman, I should be thinking that for every car that we buy, we should be bringing it into our shop, and I should have the camera going on it, showing the good, showing the bad, showing how we fixed it, showing what it needed. And that way, when a customer comes in and says, "Oh, I just took my car to my mechanic and he says that the brakes are bad and they wouldn't pass inspection. And now you've got a tool to go back and say, well, I'm pretty sure we did the brakes on that. They're brand new, or they were at least half. They were, nothing to not fail or not pass inspection. Like, there's a certain level of transparency there that allows people to look at that and say, okay, like you said, it's everything I said it was.
Right.
I didn't lie to you. So do you find, you said you didn't do any marketing, I guess, so that kind of negates my next question. I was going to say, well, what other forms of marketing do you do? So you've got to be able to sell that car somehow. You got to be able to get the word out. Is it truly just from the YouTube video? You're building this car and it's for sale, or is there a specific spot that you are able to list that and show that it is for sale?
I do list them for sale. I'll put them on cars.com or whatever if they make it that far. But most of the time, it's just customer referrals, and I have enough, and I have people that call me up and say, hey, I'm looking for this car, and my cars are so boring. They fit in a lot of different categories, so it's like, I need an SUV. Okay, well, what price range, what kind, and well, I really don't care. I just need to be in this price range. Okay, well, here's a Terrain, if that's what you're looking for, well, I need something a little bigger. Okay, here's an Explorer, so that's, here's an Enclave, like that's where that fits in, Grand Ams. I've sold Grand Ams from 16-year-old kids to 85-year-old ladies. Everybody can drive a Grand Am, they get decent gas mileage. They're cheap. They're cheap to maintain. According to the experts, they're not very reliable, but I have a customer that just sold one of mine, and I made them sell it. They didn't want to sell it, but you could put your hands through the rockers. They were so rotted out. It still had, with 200,000 miles, original trans, original engine, original fuel pump.
Wow.
On a GM. Other than a water pump, a battery, a couple sets of tires and brakes, that's all I ever did to that car. And I serviced it for the last 16 years. So, and they were sad to get rid of it, but they sold it for like $2,000. Car prices are ridiculous. I'm like, I'm not selling it. This is not something I would sell. I'm telling you to get rid of it because you shouldn't drive it. But what you do with it is not my deal. So they sold it. But yeah, so like I just have a lot of calls, and they've said, well, I need to replace that car. So what do you have? Well, what do you want? So I'm currently looking for a car for them, and that one probably won't make it to my YouTube channel. Actually, about 80% of the cars I rebuild, you never see it. I only show the ones that aren't sold. So.
I suspect I probably already know the answer to this question, but I'm gonna ask it anyway because it's one that I was asked all the time after I basically announced I was done with my Fairmont project and would be eventually looking for another one. And then, of course, the commenters were all like, so what are you getting next? What are you buying next? And every time they asked that question, I would always say, I really don't know. It's going to be market driven. So I guess the question I'm asking is, Scott, do you find, I know obviously Grand Ams are a sweet spot for you, but do you go out looking for a certain car, or do you kind of let the market drive? You're like, oh, this is interesting. I haven't done one of these before, or hey, there's 7 of these on copart.com. Let me pluck one of these. How do you make the determination on what the next one's going to be?
Bid prices. I bid on hundreds of cars, if not thousands of cars every week. I've slowed down a lot, but yeah, at least hundreds of cars every week. And I used to get, 3 or 4 a week. Now I get 1 every couple weeks if I'm lucky. Like the market is very different than when I started. But the price, like I just know I would love to do Honda Civics and Toyota Corollas all the time, but the prices are just too high. So I've done a couple because I snuck them out of the auction. Nobody was paying attention and I stole them. So, but I do it as, a profitable rebuild. There's a lot of people, especially now, that are like going to try rebuilding cars, get into it and don't realize when they're all done, they're going to have more invested in, they just went to CarMax and bought one. And I've done this enough that, of course, I did have the mistake truck, and I was that guy. I was a little worried that I wasn't going to recover from that one, but it turns out I bought that parts truck, and that parts truck saved me. If I hadn't found that truck and I hadn't got a great deal on that truck, I don't know if I would have made any money on it. Well, I would have now for sure, with the way the truck market ended up going a few years later, because that truck is probably worth more now than when I sold it. And I still see that truck. The guy I sold it to still drives it all the time. So, and he loves it. But yeah, I don't pick the cars, and like when I do find a car that sells really well and I have a parts car for it, this Terrain, the white Terrain I'm doing right now, I had the parts already. And this isn't the first one I've bid on to use up those parts. It's probably about the 30th, but it's the one that I finally got. So, and it was a good deal on these Terrains. They're my secret. I hope everybody doesn't start buying them, because the parts fit all the way back to 2010, the body parts. So you got 8 years of coverage. They share some parts with an Equinox, and, they still sell really well, especially when you have, like, that one was a 17 with 35,000 miles. My closest competition around here was $28,000, I think. So it just made sense to pick that thing up, especially since I had to buy curtain airbags and a seat cover. I had everything else, and a couple tires and some brakes.
So I guess another question that I was interested in, I guess before we get into that question, I do want to make sure that everybody knows that because of where we are at this point in the show, we want to start opening up the chat to questions for Scott. So if you got something that you think that we haven't covered yet that you want to have Scott answer for you, go ahead and type it into the chat, and we'll try and get to them as best we can. So I guess I got a question. It's kind of a two-part. So one is, how long does the average build take you? Keeping in mind, obviously, you're recording, so that takes extra time and whatnot. And the part two to that would be, how true to the time frame that you're doing the rebuild versus the time the videos come out are you working at it? So, like, you're working on this white Terrain. Are you still working on it now, even though the videos are coming out weekly on it, or is it something that you worked on months ago?
Okay, so first part of the question, how long do I spend on each one? It depends on what the car needs. The Terrain was pretty much 2 weekends, and it was done. And because of the state of Illinois and the rebuilt titles, I finished the car. I have to take it for a safety test, which I could take at any time. Get that done. That's no problem. But then after that, I have to send in to get the state inspection. Now, sometimes that takes a few days for them to get back to me with a date, and that date could be a week, 2 weeks, whatever. So then once I get that inspection, we have another 4 to 6 week wait for the title. So usually when you're seeing a car with a rebuilt title, it's right about the time, depending on how many videos I have of it, that it's going for the inspection. So that by the time the last video is out, it's ready to sell. I don't want to have, no title. I want it to be ready to sell when the last video comes out, and I get, as soon as the first video is out, I get all the emails. Hey, is this car for sale? Hey, is this car for sale? Hey, is this car for sale? We haven't even seen what it looked like. What if I screw it up? Like, wait till the end. So, but everybody wants to be the first one. And I understand. So that's why the videos are usually lagging, is because I want to have the paperwork. And if I get it all done and say, yeah, the car's done, here it is, basically I could do it live, but then, oh, you want to buy it? Well, you got to wait 6-8 weeks for the title, and I want to have the title back already. Now, if it's a clear title car, I could just sell it as soon as it's done. That was that Enclave, the red Enclave I did. It was a clear title, so you pretty much saw the videos as it was happening. The car was done the weekend before. I made all the videos, and the next week it came out on Friday. So
Well, that was what I was interested in. I mean, I know oftentimes we all get frustrated about government oversight, especially when it comes to the Department of Motor Vehicles, right? But it's actually probably nice in this sense that there's a process in place, so you know that like the state's sort of behind the work that you're doing when it comes time to sell. But so you talked about the things that the seller has to go through when it comes to comes to salvage titles. Any advice to the prospective buyers? Is there anything they need to worry about when it comes to buying a car with a salvage title, or how do you talk people through that? Like, to give them a comfort level of basically what you're putting out there.
Well, I don't have any problem with selling my rebuilt titles. And we also have to designate that my cars are all rebuilt titles. They're not, I don't sell anything with a salvage title. So there are people out there that do that. They fix the car and then sell it with a salvage title. So somebody else has to go do all the inspections and everything else. My car, you could just register it and drive it. You're done. And I encourage people, and it's not just a salvage title, it's a clear title car. Always get the car inspected. If you don't know anything about a car, even if you got your brother-in-law and he knows about cars, have him look at it, because don't take my word for it. I got videos to prove everything, but if I don't have videos, don't take my word for it. I'm a trustworthy guy, but you don't know me from anybody else. So have somebody you trust take a look at it. And I tell people that all the time. It's worth, if you're spending $10,000 on a car, how is it not worth a $200 inspection? And I'm always happy that people are like, hey, can I have this car inspected? Not a problem. I encourage it, and people think that, you really got to watch yourself on cars with rebuilt titles. I've seen some pretty nasty stuff on clear title cars, and people don't realize that, because at least when you have a rebuilt title, somebody's at least checking it over somewhat when it's done. If you got a clear title car, there's nobody checking anything over when they fix it. So who knows what was done? I've seen some pretty nasty stuff. I had a Chevy Colorado one time that they heated the frame. That's a no-no. And then they riveted on all the inner structure for the front end with just aluminum rivets. Like, that was their repair. And I found it because it was in another accident, and the Grand Prix that it hit was drivable, and this thing was destroyed. And it was because the work they did. The frame crumpled right back up, and the front end literally just kind of sheared right off. And that was a clear title car with nothing on the Carfax, no accidents. So,
well, and that's what a lot of people rely on, is they rely on the Carfax to tell them the story, right? So all the Carfax is telling is the story that was told.
Yeah,
that's blatant. Okay, it was in an accident, and the police were called, so there was a police report. There was an estimate of $18,000 to fix this $30,000 car, so they decided to rebuild it. Okay, no problem. I know that now. But there's instances where somebody might have this $30,000 car, does not have the proper insurance to make a claim, and sends it to ABC Body Shop out in the middle of the woods somewhere that says, oh, I can fix that. And they do it. They fix it for $5,000. And all of a sudden, you've got a $30,000 car with a clean title that has had $5,000 worth of expert work, and it's a piece of shit. So that's the problem that we deal with, is you don't know what you don't know. So when it comes to buying a car, like you said, don't take my word for it, right? Take it to somebody who is the expert, who can check this thing over and find those aluminum rivets and the duct tape and the baling twine and the zip ties. Like, it's buyer beware no matter what. That's one thing that I have a hard time with in the used car business. People come into my shop and they want to take my word for it. And I try to tell them everything I know about the car, because I want to be transparent. I want to be upfront. The problem is that when they do buy the car and they go somewhere else and there is an issue, whether it be the next day or 6 months down the road, they're coming screaming at me. Right. And when you're in business, you don't want that. You want to maintain that relationship. You want to make sure that they're going to come back and buy that second, third, fourth car, whatever it is. So I guess as a PSA to anybody who's watching this video right now, if you're out there looking for a car and a rebuilt title kind of has you asking questions, well, just know that in most states and in most provinces in Canada, that if you're buying a rebuilt title, that vehicle had to go through some sort of an expert, truly expert and professional inspection to make sure that it was in fact repaired correctly. So keep that in mind. If you're buying a car and the guy says it's a rebuilt title, just know that to some degree, someone had to look at that at some point in time, and don't hesitate to ask the people to take it out and have it looked at again. So we did have a question coming in from the Bandit, and Bandit wants to know, and I think we covered this earlier, but he was asking, how long have you been doing rebuilds, and how many of them do you actually keep?
Well, I've been doing it for 30 years. My first one that I rebuilt for profit was 30 years ago. And how many do I keep? Well, I have, that's hard to say. I have my forever truck is pretty much the only thing, and my G8 GXP. Those are the only two I intend on keeping, but either one of those, if enough money comes along, will go away. I am not attached to anything. But those are the only two that I consider my cars. Everything else is just, I drive it for a while and then away it goes.
So when you come across, like when you're looking through, I assume that you use primarily Copart to buy your cars?
Actually, I use mostly IA.
Okay. So if you're using a specific venue to purchase your cars, you get familiar with what the disclosures are, with what the condition reports are on these cars. Do you buy solely on what they're telling you through a website, or do you often go and physically look at these cars before you make the decision to put a price on it?
So this comes from YouTube experts. They just assume that everybody that rebuilds cars goes and looks at every single car that they buy. And that's great if you're rebuilding 6 cars a year and you can do that. And one thing I found is when people do that, they pay too much money. What I do, and what junkyards, LKQ, any big junkyard, any big rebuilder, they don't look at the cars. We look at the pictures, and I can tell you probably more from a bunch of pictures, than some people can tell you by standing there and looking at the car. How the car was maintained, how it, what the damage is, and then when I'm all done with that, I figure even more in, just to be safe, because there's always something you don't see. And that gives me that little safety net. And if I am surprised and there's something wrong, okay, I didn't lose money. If everything went right, then I can either sell the car cheaper or I can make a little more money on it because I have that little cushion that's still left over. I buy everything through just pictures. I mean, most of the stuff that I buy is nowhere near me. And I don't have time to be going and looking at every car when you're bidding on, 100 cars a week. How can you look at everyone? And how can you pay, somebody else $200 to go look at every car? The amount of money I would pay people to be looking at cars, I could just lose a whole car and still, come out ahead, And I've gotten some that, they weren't good cars. They became parts cars, and then I just bought another one. So.
Yeah, I feel like these YouTube experts, Scott, I feel like they should be gnomes too, YouTube expert gnomes at this point. Just kind of, make them part of the family. But this is the part of the show where we usually go around the horn, just kind of to talk about upcoming content, kind of a peek behind the curtains for each of our channels. And so, Jason, why don't you kick us off and let us know what's coming up on Old Car Guy?
Well, as you guys know, I have made the decision to sell one of my Panther platform cars. The decision that I made was to sell Blackjack, my lifted 2003 Grand Marquis Ultimate Edition. So I've got a video coming out on that. I put a kind of a teaser up on Instagram today, so you guys can go take a look at that. And we've got a few more things to do to the Monaco, and we're getting ready to start driving the square body as a daily here pretty quick. And believe it or not, the Yugo is something I'm considering putting off the engine swap process on for a little bit so that I can actually get out and drive that thing for the summer. With the gas prices the way they are, I'd sooner be spending, you know, $60 every 3 or 4 weeks on a Yugo than do that every 3 or 4 days on the square body, traveling back and forth to work. So that's what's coming up on Old Car Guy. Grant, tell us a little bit about what we can expect on Straight Six Fan in the coming videos.
Well, yeah, if you've watched the last 2 weeks and are here tonight, then it's kind of broken record time. It is actually, the next video will be the unveiling of the next project car, the 1979 Pontiac Grand Prix. I pick it up from the shop tomorrow, the transmission shop, that is. And so, but now will it come out on time? I don't know, because I want to spend my time and make it a really good edit and do all those fancy things for the kickoff of a new project. Feels like it kind of deserves that. So that's what's coming up next on Straight Six Fan. Scott, what's coming up on VEHCOR?
Well, we're going to finish the 2017 terrain Denali that we're working on. And then I got another project, and you'll be shocked to find out that it is white as well. So we're going to be doing that one. There's a few other project cars, but that one, it's, you know, the truck is done. I've been driving it. You know, and that's another good thing about having to wait for the titles after they go for the inspection. I drive them, I put miles on them. So when people pick up the cars, hopefully anything that's broken, I've already found and fixed it. So I don't have those people that come back to me a week or a month later, you know, and that also helps to build confidence. You know, it's like, hey, I didn't just rebuild this thing yesterday and sell it to you today. You know, I drove it. I put 1,000 miles on it, 1,500 miles on it. So that's what I'm doing with the one that I have now. So the title should be back in a couple weeks, and the video should be done on that one in a couple weeks. And, you know, then I'll move on to something else, something boring.
So we do have a few super chats popping in there. Mopar Den, thank you so much for sharing $5 with me. That will go towards the Yugo fund, as well as the Bandit for sharing $5. Keep in mind, guys, anybody that shares on the super chats, we don't go unnoticed. We do make sure that at the end of the season, we've got a little something to give back to those who have given to us. So don't just think we pocket that money and do nothing or spend it unwisely. We do use it to help support you guys for supporting us. So thank you very much to those 2 super chats. Scott, we are getting ready to close the show, and I wanted to kind of save this for the very end. And I hope that it doesn't deter you from creating any more videos on the subject, but I have to ask, where's the Mustang?
Same place it's been, sitting in the building. Actually, I did work on it over the winter. I put in about 4 hours of it. It was about when I was doing that black Grand Am, and to get to that building in 8 inches of snow, and then to get out of the driveway, which is up a big hill. I don't know if you can see it in some of my other videos. It took me about 3 hours to get back up that hill. So then I decided we're not working on this thing again until spring. So it hasn't changed much. I got a little work done, but you know, the deal was when the last video hits 250,000, I'll do the next video. So I think I got about 6 months before I got work on it again.
So for those of you guys who don't know what I'm talking about, Scott has it's a 65
convertible
65 convertible Mustang body that's going on to a modern Mustang 2015 Mustang. Like I say frame, it's all unibody, but it's a frame.
Yeah,
so basically kind of combining the 2, the 65 and the 15 together. And kind of the rolling joke is that when Scott sees people asking too many questions about the Mustang in the comments, he just insinuates that he won't be putting out another video on it. So Scott, just explain just very quickly about what it is you're doing with that Mustang and kind of the rolling joke behind it.
Well, it started out as just something to do in my free time, and it was I've always loved fuel injection. You know, I like the old classic cars, but I don't like carburetors. I like, you know, reliable fuel injection, at least for me. And so that's what I wanted to do. And to build that car and buy everything from a kit, would cost way more than what this car is going to cost me. And you lose a lot of things. Like this car will still have the factory air conditioning, the factory radio, the factory power steering, the traction control, the ABS, everything. All that stuff is going to work. Whereas if I just bought the kit to put the Coyote in it, I'd lose all that stuff. This will basically be a 2015 car that looks like a 1965-ish on the outside. So it was supposed to be my free time, and I didn't know that the car market was going to turn into what it is now. And why should I stop working on the cars that are making, a bunch of money to work on the ones costing me money? So, I mean, if I had a buyer for it, I'm not selling it, I might be more motivated, but for the amount of money I'd have to get for that thing, for the time I've invested in it, it might just wait until I retire. Or I will work on it if I'm a YouTuber. So if it's getting 250,000 views, if that would have happened the next day, I would have been right back to work on that Mustang. I would have been a little upset, but I would have kept working on it. A deal, so I'll hold up my end of the deal. But I'll probably put up some videos when I get something done, and I won't make them wait to 250,000. But if free time is few and far between around here, so I don't get over there much, and it's a 15-minute drive each way to go work on it. It's not right next door, so it'll get done eventually.
Well, as the owner of we do own a 2015 Mustang Premium. It's an EcoBoost, not a Coyote, but they are a really well put together car. Actually, when we were buying that car, we test drove the generation before and that one, and there's just a huge gap, in my opinion, between the S550 platform and the S197. And so I think it's also really cool that they're literally 50 years apart, the two-year meshing together. I mean, like, how many people, like, we've seen body swaps and stuff, but how many people have done a true same car 50 years apart body swap? I think that's really cool.
And it's funny because on the dash there's a little plaque that says 1960. I think it says 1964 and then to 2015. So we're gonna make sure that ends up in the car.
That's really cool. Yep, I'm familiar with ours has the same one. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So for you guys who are watching this now or in the replay, if you want to see more videos on that Mustang build, make sure you head over to VEHCOR's YouTube channel. The link is in the description down below. Also, if you like the content, go ahead and subscribe. I'm sure that just like every YouTuber, there are some goals that we look for. He's getting really close, I think, to 200,000. I'm sure that he'd be very happy to see that happen sometime in the near future. Scott, thank you so much for taking some time out of your busy schedule. We know that you're always working on something to come join us here on the Car Guy and Six Fan Show.
Oh, thank you guys for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Well, I was just going to say pleasure as well. So I just wanted to say thanks personally myself, and guess we'll wrap it up here. And because the Car Guy and Six Fan Show is a joint operation, it does alternate every other channel. It is on my channel next week, and we do bring in Lala Fox 92. So a female creator. We've been trying really hard every season to bring in female creators in our niche, and so we're really looking forward to that conversation. But I guess that's where we'll leave it. And to all my Six fans out there, thanks for watching.